Well, thank you for the generous introduction, David, and thank you all for the opportunity of giving me the chance to speak to you tonight. I know that the Foundation and indeed the Royal Society had hoped to be hosting the Minister of State for Science, Research and Innovation, and I can obviously sympathise with your evident disappointment. Though, as David, I'm sure, will attest, former science ministers never do seem quite able to leave the community that they represented entirely behind. But if I stand here as the person, if not the office that you were expecting, can I start by stating that I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity, an opportunity to be able to put on the record for the first time since my departure, my thanks and sincere gratitude not only to many of you I can see here in this room today who've been of enormous help, but also to the wider science and research community for your dedication. A dedication that extends beyond your individually diverse research fields, but which joins everyone here tonight in a common purpose. That single purpose, evident in the passion from the speakers today and also from people in this room, for giving researchers, no matter where they come from, whether that be defined by institutional borders, across academia and industry, or national ones, an opportunity to succeed. That success, I believe, comes from being able to thrive in the conditions that are needed to achieve great research, both inventive and innovative, discovery-led and impactful. And it comes from also recognising that these individual conditions aren't necessarily static. If anything, research and innovation by its very nature holds a looking glass to policymakers and governments, warning us of the need for constant change, or we could redefine it as agility, if we were to adapt for the future. Now, we all know, having been here, that change can be uncomfortable, indeed unsettling, but embracing change and directing disruption is an essential part of all of our endeavours. And I believe that when it comes to international research, there may be challenges ahead, but also huge opportunities for the UK over the next decade. Now, this year, will be the moment to shape the change that we wish to happen. Already, we know the global importance of the UK to the international research landscape. With 0.9% of the world's population, we make up over 4% of its total research population, producing over 15% of the world's most highly cited research papers. The UK's international research landscape has also been transformed in the past 10 years, as Adrian set out in the slides before. Between 2007 and 2017, there's been a 70% increase in foreign R&D expenditure in the UK, with a 22% increase in US expenditure, a 42% increase in EU expenditure, and obviously starting from a low base, a 300% increase from other international countries. And as a result, we've become the second most collaborative country amongst research-intensive countries, just behind France. This success, I believe, has been achieved by a careful creation of an international research community, also right here in the UK. That's because it is and always will be, first and foremost, about people. 1/3 of university staff are international, up from 28% in 2014-15, and over half of all UK peer-reviewed publications are co-authored by at least one international researcher. Our research ecosystem, therefore, depends entirely upon our international collaborations, both here in the UK and across the rest of the world. And like innovation itself, these collaborations are complex, the products of often decades of academic and business relationships layered upon each other, generations worth of effort that have gone into achieving them. I remember my first visit as Science Minister to the Joint European Tourism meeting, an individual who'd come from Canada. He was now 62 years old, but he'd started his work as a 23-year-old doctoral student at the Joint European Tourist Jet in Culham, and just demonstrated to me longevity of some of these international research projects, and that individuals have committed their entire lives to them. They've been fashioned, these international research partnerships, in a spirit of confraternity, but also humility, that science and research is not the product of merely brilliant individuals working in a vacuum, but the operation of a team, now often using modern process management to achieve results. A team vitally important to recognise this fact that stretches right across from international doctoral students, postgraduates and early career researchers to PIs, valuing each of these individual contributions right up through that talent pipeline. And it's why, when I was Science Minister, I published not only the International Research and Innovation Strategy and commissioned the work that Sir Adrian Smith and Graham Reid have undertaken, but also published the International Education Strategy to sit alongside this. It's why, with the recent £300 million announcement to double the number of maths PhDs over the next 5 years, I've also lifted the 10% cap on international applications, and why I'm so keen that a research people strategy, which I announced last month, will seek to develop the best working conditions for researchers, both domestic and international, in the UK, so that we can make the United Kingdom the best and most attractive place to come and achieve excellent research. Visa reforms are now taking shape, including the Global Talent Visa and the post-study work visa, which will have their part in attracting international researchers, just as the reforms to the system will for the first time recognise mobility in producing research. Yet we must also, I think, recognise that these strategies, these improved application processes, and indeed warm words, aren't enough. Now, I may no longer be able to have full ministerial responsibility for the work that I've undertaken, but that will not prevent me personally from continuing to help shape the debate around policy and also take a continuing active role in encouraging and enacting the change which we now need to see take shape. And with this in mind, I will personally continue to champion the vital importance of expanding our international research opportunities and to make this country one of the best places to come and do research, to invest in research, and to allow UK researchers also to have the international opportunities that they deserve. Which brings me ultimately onto our new partnership with the European Union, undeniably the most important feature of the science and research policy landscape for 2020. In my time as Science Minister, I always sought to do my utmost to protect the sector, which I deem synonymous with the national interest. Encapsulated in the withdrawal agreement, as Graham's mentioned, is, I believe, a common understanding amongst both the UK and our European neighbours. It was fantastic to hear Gunther's words today, that we can simply not risk breaking apart our European research partnerships. These are too precious, these are too valuable, and they are too important. Research, as Nancy's mentioned, that is genuinely protecting, genuinely saving lives, research that is leading the fight against climate change, must not be gambled with. Now, I don't need to convince any of you here tonight of the importance of association into Horizon Europe as opposed to third country status. The UK has been the second largest beneficiary of Horizon 2020, with 13,000 participations receiving around 14% of its total grants. 35% of those grants would not be able to be accessed under third country status, which is why an association agreement is absolutely essential. What I want to do from now on, together, is to continue to make the wider case, not just amongst ourselves in rooms like this here tonight, but to the wider public, that this is of the utmost value to ultimately the taxpayer, and that it's in their interests, as the people funding any contribution, that they will see the benefits of this international research collaboration. That for every £1 spent on Horizon contribution, the direct and indirect economic benefits are indeed multiple. That our clinical trials in the NHS are reliant on continued collaboration in Horizon, with the UK having the third highest number of joint clinical trials with the EU countries, and in particular, as Nancy's mentioned, the second highest for rare diseases and paediatric patients. Now, when it comes to tone, this case must never be made looking backwards. Instead, we must seek to make it looking forwards, positively into the opportunities that it presents for this decade. Association agreements such as those the EU established with Israel have achieved a demonstration that this is readily possible. And with the inconclusive debate over the final budget for Horizon Europe, we need to be prepared to make the point that we have, as ever, a mutual self-interest in agreeing an association as soon as possible. Now, I stand here tonight, able to speak my own mind, as David mentioned, but I'm also very clear in my own mind that full association into Horizon Europe is essential. But that isn't enough, again, just to say it. So from now on, I want to help work with you to fashion a campaign that will demonstrate the true value, the true public value of why we need to associate into Horizon, working with universities, with the academies, but vitally also researchers themselves demonstrating this human dimension to why we need to associate, to demonstrate the positive value of continuing our European research partnerships. And I'll be calling on many of you here to help me in this endeavour, to help communicate, to help explain the incredible human benefits of maintaining our partnerships and why association into Horizon Europe matters, to help demonstrate also to our European neighbours that while we are no longer members of the EU, the importance we place on protecting our research partnerships is at the core of our future relationship and indeed our future priorities. As I said before, this is the year of decision, but I want to ensure that the correct decision for the sake of British research and indeed our international reputation is taken. For too long, we have allowed this to be a binary discussion between government and the Commission. We now need to work together to highlight that it is in the British national interest above all to form an association agreement. Of course, we must extend our wider international partnerships to create new opportunities as we seek to expand our global collaboration. I'm sure we'll talk about that in the discussion later on. Yet the one must never exclude the other. We work and research ultimately under one horizon. We have done so for decades, and we must do so in the next decade to come. Thank you very much.